Hi, everybody. My name is Abraham, and I'm your big brother in recovery, bringing you another educational video on how to achieve sustainable sobriety. If you're new to the channel, I'd like for you to click the like button and press subscribe, and please leave me a comment about possibly any topics that you want to talk about in the upcoming educational series that we're planning on doing this year. I hope everybody out there had a great holiday, wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is that you worship and you celebrate. And I hope you had a great time with your family. But now you know we're in 2020 now. 2019 is gone. We can't go into 2020 with 2019 issues. This video goes out to all my brothers and sisters that we lost in 2019 to what I consider to be a treatable illness, which is the illness of addiction. The only solution for addiction is recovery, and we do recover. So I want to get right to it because that's what brings us to this video that I want to do immediately on the beginning of this new year. But before I do it, I want to set this up for you. I hope you enjoyed the last video that we did and the rest of the videos that we did. And I'm quite sure this one is going to add value to you. When you think about success, when you think about everybody that is successful, they all have one thing in common. And that one thing simply is they know how to get from where they are to where they want to be. It's that simple. Because what separates them from where they are to where they want to be is one obstacle that stands in the way. So the concentration should be on how do I get from where I'm at to where I want to be. And as I forestated, the obstacle is normally the how. How do I do it? So I'm going to talk to you about a topic. We just talked about what every successful person has in common. They know how to get from where they are to where they want to be, but they also are known for one thing. When you think of Floyd Money Mayweather, you think of boxing. When you think of Tiger Woods, you think of golf. The great Michael Jordan, you think of basketball. The question is, when they think of you, what do they think of? And please don't say addiction. When people think of me, I believe from what I'm told, they think of recovery. Why? It's all I talk about. I talk about one thing. So, the topic for today's video is simply this. The one SMART goal for 2020. What is the one SMART goal you should set for 2020? One goal, and it needs to be a smart one. Obviously, there are two types of people in recovery. Those that are recovering and those of us who have recovered. We do recover. However, what we need to know is, first of all, how to do it. Forward to the First Edition tells us, well, that's exactly what the purpose of this book is. Its main objective or purpose is to enable you to recover. How do you do it? This book will tell you how. So, without further ado, let's define what a goal is, first of all. A goal is simply something that you want. So I believe in 2020, if you're recovering, your goal should be to recover in 2020. Now, when you think about that, you ask yourself, okay, what's SMART? The acronyms for SMART are simply this: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and last but not least, time-based. Why time-based? Simply because a goal without a deadline is merely a wish. And wishes don't come true, but goals do because they are measurable outcomes. So I'd like to at least share with you why we want to set one SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based goal for 2020. And that goal should be to go from recovering to recovered. If you want to know anything about recovering versus recovered, look at my video series on it. I don't have time to go back to it, but our dust jacket or our cover page tells us in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, this is the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. So we do recover. Now, the reason why we want to recover, I'm going to show you something interesting that I found. It's found on page 64, the last paragraph. Usually when we start to do step 4, it talks about our resentments. But I'm going to show you a sentence in here that describes the entire recovery process and why we want to go from recovering, which is the process of recovery, to recovered. It says in the last paragraph on page 64, resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it, meaning resentments, stem all forms of spiritual disease. If you followed the video, you know that's the only place in the book where they use the word disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. Here comes the sentence I wanted you to see. This is why we want to go from recovering to recovered. When the spiritual malady, or in other words, your big book dictionary says illness, is overcome, meaning you've recovered, we straighten out mentally and physically. You know why? Because we recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. There it is right there. Mental, mind, physical, body. Why? Spiritual is the answer. You remember page 42? Page 42, if you look at the second paragraph, first sentence, then they, meaning those more than 100 men and women, outline the spiritual answer, there it is, and program of action. Well, now we got some work, which 100 of them had followed successfully. So we know the spiritual answer is step 2, and we know the program of action is step 3 through 12. So with that being said, we know why we want to go from where we are to where we want to be, why we want to recover, simply because when the spiritual illness is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In other words, we recover. Simple. Now, with that being in mind, we know what a goal is. It's something you should want to achieve. Well, that goal sounds like it should be the third tradition. The owner's desire for membership is a desire to stop drinking, right? So watch this. That should be the goal, the one SMART goal for 2020. And I'm going to show you how to lay it out. So if that be the case, all your energy should be placed into that one goal. Now, a goal without a plan, like they say, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. You can have a goal, but if you don't have a plan of action, guess what? Faith without works is dead, because works is action. You remember Bob, he had the answer, but he didn't know the problem, nor did he know the program of action. So, get a piece of paper out. I'm going to give you the goal. You can rewind the tape and you can write it down, but it should be worded as such. With God's help, I will easily recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body by December 31st, 2020 or sooner. I'll repeat it. With God's help, I will easily recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body by December 31st, 2020. That's a year from today. 1 year, you remember? One SMART goal for 2020. That should be the goal. But now I want to tell you what the word plan means. It's the how and the why you want to achieve the goal. Why do you want to achieve it? How do you achieve it? I'm going to show you. You remember we just looked at it on page 64? It says when the spiritual illness is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So that, just to reiterate, that's how and why we want to do it. Now, with that being said, I want to show you a couple of examples in the big book, but I want to give you a guy by the name of Earl Nightingale. His definition, you remember I told you every successful person, they know how to get from where they are to where they want to be. But in our world, where we are, we're in recovery. And we're either recovering or we have recovered. Page 132 of our big book, the last paragraph says, we have recovered and have been empowered or given the power to help others. That's why I'm doing this video. Not being braggadocious, I have recovered. So therefore, I'm trying to help the newcomer recover by offering them suggestions on how to recover. Now, Earl Nightingale said, success is really nothing more than the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. In other words, this means anyone, because recovery is an equal opportunity, anyone who knows where they are and where they are going and take the necessary steps, the plan of action to get there, is considered a success even before you get there, as long as you're en route. Why? Some of us recover quickly, some of us slowly, but it'll always materialize if we work for them. Work is a verb, it's an action word. We have to do something. Now, I want to reference our big book because I want to give you the illustration again. How to get from where you are to where you want to be. Recovering to recovered. There's one thing standing in your way. Now we're going to find out the how. We know the why. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Now let's look at two illustrations. I'd like to draw your attention to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on Roman numeral page 31. 3 X's. X, 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 I. 3 X's, 1 I. I'm going to read you two case studies. Top of the page, second paragraph. About 1 year, one goal, one SMART goal for 2020. Watch this. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. Continuous, he continued to drink. He had but partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage. That means he was bleeding internally, I assume, from his chronic alcoholism. Wouldn't you agree? That's pretty bad. And seemed to be a case of pathological mental deterioration. So now we just saw that alcoholism caused not only his physical problem, his gastric hemorrhage, but it also caused a mental disorder. It was a pathological mental deterioration. Notice next what it says. He had lost everything worthwhile in life. I remember that. And conjunction was only living, one might say, to drink. Our friends in another fellowship says that an addicted person is one who lives to use and uses to live. This guy qualifies. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was no hope. He was hopeless, and sounds like he was helpless. Following the elimination of alcohol, sounded like he went to detox or stopped drinking or something happened. There was found to be no permanent brain injury. That's a relief. Notice what he did. Here is the plan of action. He accepted the plan outlined in the book. I think you need to underline that. He simply accepted the plan outlined in the book. That means totally. 1 year later, from the time that he accepted the plan outlined in the book. He called to see me and I experienced a very strange sensation. Obviously, this is Dr. Silkworth talking. Look at the top of the page, it's the doctor's opinion. I knew the man by name and partially recognized his features. But their all resemblance ended. He didn't even recognize this guy no more. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged a man brimming over with self-reliance and contentment. I talked with him for some time, but was not able to bring myself to feel that I had known him before. Wow. To me, he was a stranger, and so he left me. A long time has passed with no return to alcohol. You remember? He went from recovering to recovered. He knew where he was because guess what? The book says that he realized that for him, he was hopeless. So all he did was accepted the plan outlined in the book. Let's look at the second case study. The doctor goes on to say, when I need a mental uplift, I often think of another case brought in by a physician prominent in New York. The patient had made his own diagnosis. Sound like step one. He admitted he was powerless. In deciding his situation hopeless, just like the first guy, including myself at one time, we recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Had hidden in the deserted barn, determined to die. You know, I used to live in New York back in the days on 125th and Lenox in Harlem. You know, there are no barns there, but upstate New York, like Syracuse and towards the more rural or the country areas, there is. So this man's alcoholism was so bad, he thought he could hide in a barn. Tell me that's not, what's the word, insane. He was rescued by a search party because, you know, his family was looking for him. And in desperate condition. Sounds like AA number 3. You remember? He was desperate. Brought to me following his physical rehabilitation. Sounds like the first guy, the elimination of alcohol. He had talked with me in which he frankly stated he thought the treatment a waste of effort. Why? Unless I could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he would have the willpower to resist the impulse to drink. You know, it's interesting in addiction, our willpower doesn't work against addiction. That's why step 3 asks us to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to care of God as we understand it, because our will is our thinking. And, you know, even Bill W. said that he tried 3 things and they didn't work. 1, willpower. That failed. 2, he tried self-knowledge. He knew all about himself, but invariably he got drunk. And last but not, fear. That's why step 4 says make a searching and fearless moral inventory, because the very thing you fear is the very thing that's going to happen to you. Why? As a man or woman think it, so is the person. In other words, you become what you think most about. Notice something. His alcoholic problem was so complex and his depression so great. Oh, sound like MESA, mental illness and substance use disorder, right? But guess what our literature says? Even those with mental disorders, they do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Honest about what? That they are powerless and they're unmanageable as a result of their alcoholism. That we felt his only hope would be through what we then call moral psychology. And we doubted even if that would have any effect. But here comes the good news. Watch this. However, he did become sold, notice in parentheses, on the ideas contained in this book. Sound like the first guy. Remember the first guy accepted the plan outlined in the book? This guy was sold on the ideas contained in this book. He has not had a drink for a great many years. I see him now and then, and he is as fine a specimen of manhood as one could wish to meet. I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through and through. Perhaps he become to scoff. Notice this. Scoff simply means I know what it means, but I want to show you in the Big Book Dictionary. It simply means to mock, doubt, laugh at, poke fun at, ridicule, or scorn. He may do those things, but guess what? Continue to read this book and continue to pray. You know, so I want to close with the goal again. How do you go from recovering to recovered in 2020? I told you what the goal is. With God's help, I will easily recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body by December 31st, 2020, just like or sooner, just like case number 1 and case number 2 did. Now I told you the plan. Guess what? All you got to do is be sold on the ideas in the book or accept the plan outlined in the book. You remember, at some of these we balked. Those are half measures. Accept the entire book, at least the first 164 pages. Now I'm going to give you the plan of action. You ready? Number 1, you must embrace a higher power of your understanding. You got to believe in something. Why? A, you were alcoholic and couldn't manage your own life. B, probably no human power could relieve your alcoholism. That means your sponsor, your home group, nothing human. But C, God could and would if he was sought. That's why I started the goal off with God's help. So you have to get a higher power of your understanding. The second thing, buy and read the big book. Why? It's the basic text. You have to accept the plan outlined in the book. The third thing you should do, because our book is suggested only, I'm not telling you how to recover, I'm just reading back to you what I read on what the people suggested we all do. The third thing is find a support group of people whose lifestyle is conducive or in alignment with what you're reading in the book. Learn about the program and the philosophy, as the one gentleman stated who Dr. Bob was sponsoring. Number 4, find a person who has recovered, because how can a person who has not recovered help you who are recovering? Find a person who has recovered and ask them to help you, because they understand the only way for them to keep what they have is to freely give it away. And last but not least, as I've been saying all through 2019, and I'm going to continue to say, it's going to sound redundant, take the steps at once and have a spiritual awakening. Look, I hope this video meant a lot to you. I need you to share this video with your friends, and I need you to understand something, that God rewards action. You know, these are the steps that we took, not the steps that we discussed, deliberated, debated on. All that's fine and good, but in order to get the reward, you have to pay the price. As Bill said, simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. So don't waste your life believing you cannot recover, because guess what? There's a common theme in recovery, and that theme is simply, we do recover. So look, that's what I have for you. I'm your big brother, Abraham. And I want you to ask yourself this question, but I've already answered it for you. And it is, what's the one thing you can do this year that by doing this one thing, it'll make everything else easier or unnecessary? In other words, to recover. Why? The first thing you put before your recovery will be the second thing you'll lose. I want to give a shout out to all my friends, Earl, Big Fred, all the other guys that I know. There's so many that just can't come to mind. And just thank you all for just listening to the channel. And again, please leave me some comments, all right? I want you to have a great 2020. That's why I did this video, because we are in 2020 now. So set the one SMART, in other words, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based goal for 2020. And that is simply to go from recovering to recovered. All right, this is your big brother Abraham signing off, telling you thanks again, and I look forward to giving you even more value in this upcoming year. Talk to you. Bye.